Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the Metropolitan Times, and we're fortunate to have with us the publisher of the Metropolitan Times, Mr. SLatham. And Mr. Latham, let me welcome you to the show this morning.
It's indeed my pleasure, Dr. Haney, and thank you for inviting me.
You know, what we try to do, Mr. Latham, is to have what we call an executive profile, giving our audience an opportunity to meet some of the executives in the community. And I think it's only appropriate to have you as an executive profile, especially dealing with your newspaper, the Metropolitan Times. Let's talk about the Metropolitan Times today as part of your executive profile today, and to have you to start off by giving us some information about your background, your education, and some of the things that were important in your life and eventually leading you to the publication of the Metropolitan Times.
Dr. Haney, I would have to go back to early childhood in terms of the time I got interested in publishing and in newspapers. When I was small, I don't know when I first began reading, but I can't ever remember not reading. And started out with the Sunday paper, I guess as most people do, and it was something that we looked forward to, include the comics and the whole works. And we would always have a copy of Post and Life magazine, and so I really became enthralled in what was going on in the world. Then, when I became a teenager, I guess early on in middle school, I started selling the African-American newspaper and the old paper out of Baltimore, and also the Chicago Defender. And it was then, we're talking about late 50s, the only contact that we had to Black America. And I was really, I really looked forward to reading about Oscar Robertson, what was going on in various colleges, black colleges and that sort of thing. Being raised in East Tennessee, in a small area that was only about 8% black. So this really whetted my appetite. And I was fortunate in high school to have gone to a school that was, although segregated, small, separate and unequal, we had teachers who cared, and those people who had potential, you were pretty much set on a separate track. So English composition was really stressed, and found out that I had a pretty good background in writing when I got to college. Went to Tennessee State University and majored in biology, but I remember as a freshman, they had a contest. Mrs. Dozier, one of the English teachers then, had a contest for all freshmen to enter on short stories, and I won. So little did I know that that would end up being my career, but little by little, I think all those things counted. Then, after becoming an adult, after graduating from Tennessee State in biology, I taught the school at Cameron High School for a short while, and then from there, I had the opportunity to get into management. In 1971, there was a company out of New York recruiting minorities to go into the management training program, and so I got into it, and they sent me to graduate school in business, where I concentrated on marketing. So eventually that love of marketing and love of writing, there was a marriage, and I got my first opportunity in 1975 to go to work for a community newspaper called the Ebony Gazette, and became assistant to the publisher. So that was a great experience. And from there, I went into doing some agency work, independent marketing, then worked in radio. And in 1979, I was just convicted, I think, to start my own newspaper. So started laying the groundwork for what is now Metropolitan Times.
In 1979, so
yes.
You've been involved with the publication of Metropolitan Times for quite a number of years.
Yes, we're ending our 15th year in about a month.
Very good. You know, when we talk about the Metropolitan Times, I think that we might talk about what you've indicated earlier about the Chicago Defender and et cetera, that the so-called black press. Let's talk about the black press and the Metropolitan Times within that framework.
It's very important. It was important then, in looking back at the history of it, Ada B. Wells and some of the contributions that they've made, and it's still important. I've been challenged a few times on the relevance or importance of the black press with all of the media that we have. But it's something that's very specific. General circulated newspapers really don't serve any particular target well. And there are certain things that are particular to our race and culture that should be communicated by people who control the press and can really identify on that basis.
And so the black press with the Metropolitan Times falls within that category. The Metropolitan Times also is a very, very unique newspaper in that it's free. And not only do you find that as a free newspaper, but talk about that. What does that mean to talk about a free newspaper? How do they exist?
Well, we exist primarily because of the commercial market that's in our domain. See, what people don't understand is that, for instance, here in Nashville, black people spend almost $1 billion a year right here in Nashville. If you took 2% of that, which is a figure that most retailers and business people will set aside to cultivate their particular market sector, or their primary, secondary, and tertiary markets. So we're talking about a market that's somewhere in the neighborhood of, let's say, advertising-wise, could be as much as $50 million a year. So that's a lot of money.
That's just in the Nashville area. You're
just
talking
in
about
Nashville.
the market in the area.
Right, just in Nashville. So, for instance, we spend, I'm talking about black people, we spend better than $245 million a year on groceries. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that just from an advertising perspective, that could be a $4 million a year business, just advertising or cultivating the black community. So it's almost endless. So my position is that the black press should have a proportionate share of that revenue. And the reason why we decided to make the paper free is that we wanted a medium that could reach better than 90% of all African Americans in the city. You can't do that selling newspapers. Nobody in the country. We did extensive research on that in 1987. And so we decided to be the big fish in the smaller pond. In other words, and now we've reached a point where we reach more African American homes than any single medium in the city, whether it be television, radio. No single medium can reach as many African American homes.
As the Metropolitan Times.
Correct. We reach 40,000 homes a week. And so that gives us a position of, and it's one that we don't take lightly. We have an obligation to those people. I feel that the newspaper is a public trust, in addition to being an advertising vehicle, that we need to address our market with quality. And that is our target readers.
Now, what are some of the obstacles in working with a newspaper like the Metropolitan Times?
Well, first, Dr. Haney, it takes a lot of money to provide the services that we do. When you look at the number of people that it takes to operate the business, we have, well, here in Memphis, together we publish a paper in Memphis also, but in both markets we have almost 40 employees. And so you're talking about spending almost $400,000 a year for employees, printing almost $500,000 a year. And one of the characteristics of this business is that most of your money is tied up in accounts receivable. In other words, when we deliver a service, provide advertising for our clients, it's often 50 to 70 days before we get our money.
You have to wait until you get your money back.
Correct.
And I tell you what we'll do, we'll continue our conversation in reference to that after this first commercial break. We'll get into some of the other things in reference to the Metropolitan Times and advertisement. We'll be back with you following this commercial break.